All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We have Bob Carpenter, the voice of the Nationals baseball on Masson, with us on the phone. He's out in San Diego, getting ready for the Nationals taking on the Padres tomorrow. But Bob, this is your final road trip of yourself. You're retiring from broadcasting, and we love to talk about your career in broadcasting. So, just talk about the this year. How's it like going to these cities and getting to your last trip, and people look like they're honoring you.
Well, it's been kind of interesting. I mean, I don't really expect that or hope for that. Basically, when I go on the road with the team, I'm there to work and represent the Nats and represent Masson, and do a good job of getting the games back to DC. So the whole dynamic of doing my last year and people knowing about it ahead of time, it's really been kind of a cool thing that I really didn't anticipate that much happening. But people have been really, really nice about it. They've said kind things about me. A few people have written, kind things and said good things about me on the radio. So that part of it's been pretty cool. And I'm glad I have the opportunity to kind of know in advance how this whole thing's going to shake out. And I'll probably have a little melancholy going for me as we get from August into September and get into that last month. So I guess I'll just have to wait until then and see exactly how it feels. But, for now it seems like it's still kind of far off. And, I'm good with that and very comfortable with my decision and the way things are going right now.
Yeah. Well, you were born and raised in St. Louis. So when did you start becoming a broadcaster? Were you like me and Adam? We grew up listening to like baseball in the summertime. I listened to Bob Murphy in New York, and Adam listened to up in Boston, up in New Hampshire area. How did you become a broadcaster? Just one night you just listened to Jack Buck on the radio and go, I might be one of him.
Well, I was actually 14 years old when my older sister got a job with the Cardinals in 1967. Okay. 2 years later, when I was 16, I was old enough to get a job at the ballpark as an usher. And so I did that for 7 summers, pretty much through high school and college. And, had a chance to be around the ballpark a lot, had a chance to see a lot of major league players up close, and realized that, hey, these guys are people too. They're not gods walking around. And I think through that exposure at the ballpark as a teenager, I learned how to handle myself around professional athletes and around the ballpark and the press box. And at that time, Harry Carey and Jack Buck were the guys doing the Cardinals on the radio. There weren't really that many games on TV back then, so I wasn't really emulating any TV announcers per se. But those guys on the radio, two of the best of all time, certainly had an influence on me. So when I got into college, I got interested in communications, mostly in radio. I think that's where, I'm in my early 70s. Most guys in my age group started on radio. And it just kind of worked out over the years that I morphed into a TV career. And, that's kind of the way that whole thing shook out. So, it goes back to those teenage years. And some nights, if I was on my break, I'd be up on the ramp in the outfield announcing the game to myself and trying to figure out, what I was watching game situations, watching certain players. So I guess if it all had a genesis, that would be that time, but probably between the ages of 14 and 18. When I got out of high school and went to college and started studying broadcasting.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at your bio yesterday, getting ready to talk to you today, and you called 7 no-hitters in your career. Out of all those 7 no-hitters, which one was the best one you ever called?
Probably the first. I'd have to say 2 of them were the best. It would be hard for me to choose one over the other, but the first one would be the last day of the 2014 season when Jordan Zimmerman no-hit the Marlins. And it was interesting because the Nats had already clinched the playoff spot. They weren't going to be playing till Friday. So Matt Williams, our manager at the time, started removing everybody out of the game. Jordan Zimmerman was supposed to pitch 5 innings. Well, he's got 5 innings and no hits. And so, this thing keeps going and going. And as the game goes on, he substitutes players in at every position except obviously pitcher and catcher, where Wilson Ramos, as it turned out, would be the only guy as a position player who played the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the game, you got some minor leaguers on the field, and Steven Souza Jr., who had been promoted, made an unbelievable diving catch in left center field to take a double away from Christian Yelich. That was the last out of the game. It was the last out of the no-hitter, and it was the last out of the season. And for me, it was my last out because local TV announcers don't get to do postseason games on TV.
Right.
So because of those circumstances being highly unusual for the last game of a regular season, that was pretty special to me. And then I didn't know that a year later we're going to have Max Scherzer. And, Max in June of 15 had a perfect game going until 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth inning.
Mm-hmm.
And a pinch hitter for the Pirates, Jose Tabata, right-handed batter, leaned into a changeup and let the ball hit him, and that ruined the perfect game. And then the Nats got the no-hitter, one hitter after that, because Josh Harrison, who later would play for the Nats, came up and hit a fly ball out to left field, and it was caught. And there was the no-hitter. So it's hard for me to differentiate between the two
mm-hmm.
because the circumstances around Jordan's no-hitter, but also the excitement of having Max Scherzer on our team. He would throw another no-hitter later in that season on the second last night of the season in New York. And then, of course, the year after that, a 20 strikeout game. So some of those crazy, wonderful things that Max did for us. But those two would have to be tied for first. And at least I can say of the 7,
mm-hmm.
6 were by the teams I was announcing for, and the only one that was against us was Dylan Cease of the Padres, which I think was back in 24
mm-hmm.
at Nationals Park against our guys. So at least 6 out of the 7 were guys I was rooting for and teams I was announcing for.
That's cool. And you have a question for?
Yeah. So LSU just dropped up another national title, and you have a star player on the Nats who was part of LSU's 7th national title in outfielder Dylan Cruz. What's your take on how he's done so far with the Washington Nationals?
Well, Dylan's going to be an outstanding big league player. He's had a few struggles. When he got called up last year, he had a hard time with spin and breaking balls and off-speed stuff for a while. You don't make it to the major leagues unless you can hit a fastball. He certainly can. And then this year he got off to another slow start, and then he was really starting to get some things done, and then he hurt his oblique. I guess it's been over a month now. So he's been out of our lineup, and we're hoping for him back really, really soon. But he's a good hitter. He's got power. He's got tremendous speed. He was leading us in stolen bases at the time he got hurt. He's a very good outfielder, a natural center fielder. He's played mostly right field for us because we had Jacob Young at center.
Mm-hmm.
But, he may end up being our everyday center fielder eventually. When that will happen, who knows? But he's got a great arm. So, Dylan Cruz is definitely a 5-tool player. I like him a lot as an individual on and off the field. Gotten to know him and his family really well in his early days with the Nats. So when we get, and they don't want to rush him back. They want to make sure he's okay because that whole oblique thing can really be a problem as far as an injury that you can re-injure. And, that can happen. And that's not anything that anybody wants to see, take place. So I think Dylan's going to be fine. He's going to be a bona fide big league player. And I think he's going to be an all-star kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's in Washington uniform for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's like now you worked with a lot of outstanding people in your lifetime, both at ESPN and now at Massillon. Is there and you've worked with the legend who came back last year after his battle with cancer, and Dick Vitale. What was it like working with the legend in Dickie V at ESPN?
I'm not. I couldn't hear you very well there. Who are you?
I said you worked with a lot of people in your time, and you were. I'm assuming you have worked with Dick Vitale. So
Oh, okay.
What was it like to work with him? Back in the days at ESPN.
We've probably done, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 40 games together over the years. It might be more. It was great working with Dick. Pardon the cough here.
Yeah.
All of us have been, really pulling for him in terms of his battle against cancer, for now he's beaten it. He's doing great and, seems to be back to his old self. I think if I read correctly, he just signed a new contract extension with ESPN. So, working with Dick was great. And the thing that's really been great about my relationship with him is that he is a big-time baseball fan. He's been a season ticket holder for the Tampa Bay Rays, I think from day one, when they've been down there. Dick lives down in the Sarasota area, so I think he can get to the ball games probably in under an hour. In fact, one year, the Nationals were in Miami and Steven Strasburg was pitching. And, Dick called me and said, hey, I want to come over for the game. And he actually drove over to Miami to see Strasburg pitch. Wow. So, that's kind of a baseball fan, he is. But, on the basketball side, I got to work with some unbelievable guys at ESPN like Dick and Bill Raftery, Larry Conley, who played for Adolph Rupp at Kentucky, my close friend Jimmy Dykes, who played for Eddie Sutton at Arkansas, and, just great guys to work with. Doing the Oklahoma games, which I did for 17 years. Yes. I got to work with Billy Tubbs, the great basketball coach there, Wayman Tisdale, one of the best players in the history of the college game, who tragically passed away at an age way too early. I got to work with Wayman. And another guy that I almost forgot to mention, when I was with USA Network back in the 80s, I got to work with Pete Maravich.
Oh, wow.
And that was a lot of fun working with Pete. Super guy, great player, great shooter. And if they would have had the three-point line back then, he would have set records that nobody would ever even come close to. So, then all the baseball guys I've had a chance to work with, I've gotten to work with Hall of Famers like Jim Palmer, Joe Morgan, Bob Gibson, Brooks Robinson, really great players like Oral Hershiser and Rick Sutcliffe, on the network level, guys who just had amazing careers. And then it was kind of interesting because then they had to come to me for a little help on the broadcasting side because they really didn't know what they were doing that much. Right. Tony Gwynn, another guy that I was honored to work with. So it's one of the great things about being a TV play-by-play guy. At the network level, there are times when you get to work with different people. From week to week, you never know who that might be. And it turned out to be some really, really great guys. And I consider myself very fortunate to, have worked with a bunch of those guys and call them friends, guys in the Hall of Fame who you can call a friend. And, for a kid from the streets of South St. Louis who grew up a baseball fan following the Cardinals and my favorite player, Stan Musial, later got to meet him when I was broadcasting in St. Louis and worked with Ozzie Smith there for a while. Just to be able to say that I worked with those guys and to a certain extent they were friends of mine, it's a great, great honor and one of the really cool things about this career.
Yeah, it is cool. And also you worked with ESPN College Game Day for 1 year with Lee Corso, who is retiring after the last game this year in August. So you had a chance to meet and work with him. So what type of person was he back in the day before you guys traveled around the country? It was back in the studio.
Well, that was Lee Corso's first year. I had done play-by-play of football the year before that. Tim Brando and I kind of flip-flopped, not by choice, but ESPN put him on games and put me in the studio that year in 1989. Bino Cook was already there, so it was the three of us. They called us the 3 C's, Carpenter, Cook, and Corso. And I had a lot of fun with those guys. Lee was a little raw as far as broadcasting, but you could tell he had a passion for the game. He got excited about what we were doing. Every Saturday there were certain games he just really got psyched up and excited about. Mm-hmm. And I think it was on New Year's Day in 1990, the first time that College Game Day ever went on the road. Bino didn't work that show. It was a 1-hour show, and we did it from the Orange Bowl in Miami on the field with tuxedos on. and sitting out there at the 50-yard line, Notre Dame beat Colorado for the national championship in the Orange Bowl that night. And as far as I know, that is the first time that College Game Day went on the road. And I've got a color picture of that, and Lee and I sitting out there at the 50-yard line on a platform on New Year's Day 1990, and it's a pretty cool thing that I can look at in my scrapbook. But that was Lee's first year, and I could tell I didn't know how long he wanted to do it, because you never know about ex-coaches.
Right.
A lot of them end up going back to coaching, but he's fashioned a wonderful career. So that's 35 years ago. Yeah. So he's been doing it for a long, long time, and another one of those guys who I feel fortunate to call a friend. And it'll be kind of a sad, melancholy day for college football when he finally does his last show.
Right, exactly. And he's such a nice guy, too. I met him a couple times, once down in Florida at Disney World. It was like 25 for ESPN, and he was such a nice guy. And then one time he came to Camden Yards, and he was in the press box, and I was there doing my stuff back in the day when we started doing this. And I went to him, "Hi, Mr. Corso. I'm the guy who met you down in Florida." And he goes, "Hey, how are you doing?" And people at the Orioles were like, "Leave him alone. He's such a great guy. Leave him alone." I'm like, yeah. It's Lee Corso, and Lee was like, I said, "Welcome to Baltimore." He goes, "Thanks, man. I appreciate it." So, he's such a nice guy, and I think it's sad that, it's glad he's retiring, but I wish the last game was going to be in Tallahassee, not in Columbus.
True.
It's unfortunate. Yeah. My wife and I were watching the All-Star game years ago. I think it was when they were at Fenway, and Ted Williams was in a wheelchair, and they had these other Hall of Famers, and they surrounded Ted and all these guys. And my wife said to me, she said something that I'll never forget. She goes, "It's so sad that these guys have to get old, Yeah. And it happens. It's life. And now it's happening to me. I mean, I'm 72. I feel like I could probably go another 2, 3, 4 years doing what I'm doing. But, I got 2 grandsons. My daughter, her husband live in town. I have another daughter that lives in town. We're all within 20 minutes of each other. And, no matter how good you feel, 72 is 72. Right. And I don't travel and rest on the road as well as I used to. And, you start looking for things that maybe tell you when it's time. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, the league knows when it's time. This year, it's going to be my time. And, I hope I get a chance to stay around and do a lot of non-baseball stuff for a long time, because I sure am going to miss it, but I sure am going to enjoy all this time I'm getting with my family.
Exactly. Well, one more question to let you get before I let you go. Talk about that scorebook you made. How did you start making that? Because I know I was reading that in 1984, your first season, you needed a notebook. You started working on it. Now everybody has your notebook. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been kind of organic the way the thing has grown over the years. In 1984, I got my first big league job. I was with the Cardinals. And in fact, I was looking at it a couple of weeks ago because I still have it. My first couple of months, I did my first major league games in a softball scorebook that I bought at a local sporting goods store down the street where I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And a month or 2 into the season, I was thinking, this just isn't doing it for me. And I asked Whitey Herzog if I could have a copy of a lineup card to take home with me. So he gave me a couple. I took it back to my hotel room and, worked into the night on it. Probably worked on it for several days and laid out a grid and then out some other things on the card that was on the, the lineup card that you would find in the dugout.
Yeah.
Who has or which team has who available off the bench to hit, who's in the bullpen, and you can look at one box and look at the other and kind of anticipate some late game matchups and things like that. So I added some other features in there, like the umpires, not just their names, but in a diamond situated where they are on the field. So if there's a bang play at second base, I can look up and I know the second base umpire. So it was kind of organic. I changed it here and there over the years, but that book goes back to 1984. We started selling it by mail order in 1995.
Oh, wow.
I designed a brochure. We sent it out to every minor league team in the Baseball America directory and some major league teams as well. I think we sold 40 of them that first year. And this year we'll sell probably around 2,000 or more. And I designed a book for the Nationals that we sell. It's a smaller book than the broadcast book. It's made for fans to bring to the ballpark. We call it the fan book. And we went online with a website in 1997. So 2 years from now, we'll be celebrating 30 years of that. But the scorebook's been around for 41 years now, because this is my 42nd season of Major League Baseball. And it goes back to my first year in 1984. And like I said, we never advertised it much. It's been kind of organic. It's been mainly word of mouth. And we probably have dozens of announcers, guys and ladies in the minor leagues using it, and a whole bunch of Major League people as well.
That's cool. Well, Bob, let me let you go, but thank you so much for coming on tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your season, and congratulations on your career, and thank you for being such a good friend of our program.
All right, guys. Thanks so much, Chris, and been a pleasure visiting with you over the years, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the baseball season.
We will. Thanks, sir. Have a great evening.
All right.
Thanks,
See you. Bye.
He's a legend.
All right, folks. That's Bob Carpenter from
He's a legend.
Voice of the Nationals, and we'll be right back. All right, folks, and welcome back here on the program. Adam, you want to welcome our next guest?
Sure. So, our guest here tonight is a spectacular young lady who is an associate coach on the University of who's the coach on the Vanderbilt University bowling team. And she recently captured her second major on the PWBA Tour, capturing the U.S. BC Queens out in Las Vegas, Nevada. So let's welcome the incredible and talented Josie Barnes. So Josie, thanks so much for joining us tonight. So what does it mean for you to capture another major on the PWBA Tour?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's interesting. I was just talking to my husband about this, and growing up, I watched the women on TV quite a bit until it folded in 2003, I believe it was. And, at that time, as a young girl, you always wanted to win the Queens or the U.S. Open. And somehow in some world, I'm now able to say that I've done both. And it feels really surreal.
That's cool. You started match play, or they call it top 64, in 13th place.
Yeah.
So just talk about the lane conditions out there in Vegas, because I know Kelly Kulick threw a 300 game out there, and everybody else was bowling pretty well. How difficult was it, and were you surprised that you were 13s going into the match play format?
Yeah, I mean, I steadily got better each day, and my outlook at the Queens is so different from most of the events, because the most important thing is just making that bracket. It's not uncommon to see someone in the 50s making the TV show, because they were able to use the information that they collected throughout the week and just hit the pairs right once the bracket came along. So I felt like I had a good look, and it was continuing to get better as the week went on. And the scores will say that it wasn't impossible to strike. But I think it really had to do with your ball matchup, right? Like, it was very hard to strike if you didn't have the right balls in your hand. So for me, it was really having a simplified idea of, okay, when this ball doesn't work, I know I'm going to this one, and then I'm going to this one, and having a game plan of, what I wanted to do, and then not being scared to do it, just taking the risk of like, okay, let's try it. Let's move on. And not, I usually play it too safe, right? And this one I was like, no, I'm going for it.
Yeah, you being in top seed of this major is really hard to be a top seed, because we see it a lot on the guys on the men's tour. Like EJ Tack is the number 1 seed, and you got to sit around for like basically almost like an hour and a half, get yourself ready to bowl. And sometimes you have one match only, and you have to find your right away. And it takes a while, and you see the other, your other opponents like struggling, trying to find a strike or a spare or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, what do I need to do to make better here? Plus, you have your ball reps there to help you, guide you. It's like, oh, we saw what's her name, the lady from Malaya, she threw to the left and got a split. Maybe you will move to the right, and you get all that coaching. So what did you do for that hour and a half getting basically it was an hour and a half getting ready for your only match on TV?
Yeah, I did my best to try to just stay loose, get in a few practice shots. And then, this was actually a unique setup because it's a split house. So the TV show was actually on a side of the house that we didn't throw many games. So I was able to, throw a few shots and then just walk across the concourse and watch a few frames on the TV show. And I felt like that was really important so that I could see how the girls were migrating across the lane, because I knew that side was hooking just a little bit more than where we had been at in the bracket. And you're right, you really don't get many frames to get lined up. I think I got 4 shots on each lane when it came time for me to come over. So it was really about finding a good balance of staying loose, right, and making sure that when I got to those 4 shots that I was making good ones, to make sure that I could make a good move, but also paying attention to what was actually happening on set. And so I think that was important for a couple of reasons. I think by watching it made it pretty obvious that the left lane was the harder lane. So I knew I wanted to start so I could finish on the right lane. Right. And I also wanted to force her over to the left lane when it came time. And so, I again took a risk, and this one happened to work out.
Yeah, let's just talk about that match. Your opponent, Sin, she started out disasters. You had a 50 pin lead on her right away, and you're sitting there going, "I'm up by 50." What is your mindset after you saw her doing 3 opens, and you're like, "You giving me the title here, or am I just?"
Yeah, with her, it's never enough. Yeah. Right? Like I feel like, I've watched Jane Bull for a long time, and that she's. Even when it's going rough for her, she's going to figure it out. And what looks like should be a 150 game is somehow miraculously going to turn into 200. And so for me, I knew I was pacing 2-teen, but you don't want to play safe, right? That's when errant shots start to come into play. After the TV break, I felt like the lanes were showing even more friction, and that's when I went high and then split. So I really just tried to continue to be aggressive and control my frames, because once I got out to that lead, I knew at that point it was just about maintaining.
Yeah, let's just talk about that split. Let's bring this up, because I know you're saying after the TV break, a lot of things change on the television. Going well, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, we're gonna be right," and Dave Ryan, "We'll be right back on CBS Sports," and you're sitting there going, "Okay, I gotta take a commercial break."
Yeah.
Sitting there pondering, okay, what do I need to do in my next frame, because I'm going to be the next one up. And you see this a lot on the men's tour.
Yeah.
Adam saw this when we were kids growing up. Like, let's use Randy Peterson for an example. One time he was up bowling really well, has a perfect through 6, and then the TV commercial comes back, and then he gets back up and he throws a 9, or he gets splits or something like that. And there goes his perfect game. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, what am I supposed to do? And this shot here, sorry for the white balance here real quick.
No, that's okay.
Trying to get it clear here. So this shot right here, this is right after the television. You had a 50 feet, and you're like, okay, and you went high, and you're like, oh crap,
right.
And I think Adam and I saw this made by Leno Melicelli in '91 at the Showboat.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's right, Chris.
So this is an easy split to make, but if you know how, but on a lanes like you're doing right now, you're bowling on, it's difficult probably, because you're trying to you don't want to slide or chop.
And it's all about managing what needs to be done in that moment, right? So, like for me, I knew that I was still at 2-0 pace if I got count, and she could max at 198. So for me, I was just saying, all right, get your 2 pins, right? Like take the count. I felt like my shot the frame before that, frame 6, was actually a good shot, and it just took too much. So I think they show it on there. After I split, I walked over to the ball reps, and I'm like, it's got to be move time, right? Because both lanes kind of gave me the same thing. So it was really more about me managing my score and saying, okay, I'm going to get count, and then go have a conversation, because the next 2 are the most important frames that I've got.
Yeah, and Adam knows about this too. Like in the later in the game, 2 pins is better than none, because that pins could basically, be life or death of not winning the title. If you didn't get those 2 pins and you get 1 pin, she could have strike out, and then you'd be like, I should have got 2 pins on that split, and you'd be carrying that over freaking Cleveland right now trying to
Yeah.
figure out what they're doing.
Well, and it's, I was asked by Curtis, one of the media guys out here, about my coaching and my philosophies and my style, and if I, listen to what I say to the girls. And I said, absolutely. Like, I can't ask them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And one of the conversations we have over and over and over again is how important count is. And you never know it's important until the game is done, right? And you're staring at it and you're going, well, shoot, had I just gotten the 2 instead of 1 or 3 instead of 2, and you're going, crap, that's why I lost the match. It wasn't because I wrapped 10 in the 10th. It was because I didn't manage my frame well.
Right.
And so that was one of those moments where I was like, yep, we're taking care of count here.
Exactly. Adam, you have something to try?
Yeah. So Josie, in 2008, you were voted, you by the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. You were the co-winner of the Female Amateur Athlete of the Year, and was shared by someone we all know in the world of women's basketball and someone from your rival school, Candace Parker. So just talk about what was that like to share that award with someone that has gone on to do well in the world of women's basketball, in Candace Parker.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things I still write about when people ask me my accomplishments. I always like to add her to that because I'm like, people, like, if you're a sports person at all, you know who Candace Parker is, right? Like, she's an amazing athlete, and it was so meaningful at that point. I was really bummed when they did the dinner. It was right after her college season, and so she was going into the draft. So she wasn't actually there. I haven't actually met her, but we did share that award. And so it was really cool. I think it's cool for bowling. Nashville, Tennessee, like, they really, accepted our team at Vanderbilt, and we've won some really cool awards in the athletic realm of Tennessee sports, and I just think it shows like the impact that bowling can make on people and the respect that they give it. One of the things that was equally as meaningful to me as the award with Candace Parker is after I won in 21 for the US Open, they actually invited me to the Capitol building and named a day and did this whole proclamation for me in front of all of the government officials. And it was way more impactful once I got there than I think I realized. And it just feels really cool that, they have that much respect for what we do.
Yeah. And it's like, and you're also an associate coach on the women's bowling team at Vanderbilt, and and lately Vanderbilt has had a lot of success, in the NCAA championship. So, what's it like for you as an associate coach, to get ready for the NCAA championships when it happens?
Yeah, it is all the emotions wrapped into one, right? Like, if you've ever coached anyone, like, it's all excitement, it's hard work, it's frustration, it's it's a long season. So we start in September, it goes until April, but I have so much joy in what I do with those kids. We get them at a really important age. I think you think back to who you were at 18 and who you were at 22, and they're usually wildly different. So I get to see these kids grow and change and develop into these really awesome human beings, and that go out and change the world, whether that's the bowling world or, we have nurses and chiropractors and lawyers. And, so the bowling part is obviously really important, but just being able to see them through that human development is really cool.
And also, one of the kids on the Vanderbilt bowling team has famous parents, so it's like just talk about having Alyssa Ballard on as part of the bowling team at Vanderbilt, because we all know her parents are very, very successful throughout their historic careers, Carolyn, and of course Del Ballard Jr.
Yeah, we actually have a really interesting team this last year and leading into this year. So we have Alyssa, who her parents are obviously both Hall of Famers. We also have Natalie Kent, who's the daughter of Doug Kent, who's also very good. And then this year we had Sydney Bone, who is Parker Bone's daughter. And so it's really interesting because they obviously have a very developed bowling background that some kids don't have coming in because they've just been around it their entire lives. But in some ways, it's like they've been taught all of these things, but they still need to experience it, right? So like, yes, you've been around it, but you have to keep doing it. And so it's really cool being able to be beside them as they do that. And so, you know, being able to foster and create an environment that they can continue to expand on the bowling knowledge that they already have. You know, it's a privilege that I don't take lightly.
Yeah. Let's talk about the two women's programs that one at Weber International and the one at Stephen in Boston. We had both of them on. I had them on years ago.
Yeah.
And they're folding because I guess the athletic department is running out of money or they can't afford it or something like that. And it's really sad for Stephen and Austin who paid 2 years ago coming off from winning a title.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I don't know the ins and outs of what exactly happened there. But what I do know is the landscape of college athletics is changing. You know, like we have pretty consistent meetings within our athletic department about what the state of different things are between NIL and things like that. And, you know, I think college athletics has evolved from the beginning, but I think it's going to continue to evolve at a very rapid pace. And, you know, I'm still learning with it. And it breaks my heart. You know, Amber Limke, the head coach at SFA, I consider to be a very good friend. So when I heard that, my heart, you know, breaks for her and it breaks for that team. But I don't doubt that she's going to land on her feet and there's going to be a program that is very lucky to have her and those kids. But yeah, you're right. It's heartbreaking. And, you know, I think we'll continue to see how this evolves.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, let's just wrap it up here. But thank you so much for joining us this on this Monday, and I hope you have a great day this week in Cleveland. You guys start this.
Thank you.
And good luck, and I hope we'll talk to you down the road.
Thank you. I hope so too. I hope I have, you know, reasons for you to contact me.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, you're a queen. I mean,
Yeah, right.
I mean, you're at Vanderbilt. I mean, it's like Vanderbilt is, you know, hopefully they have a very successful football team this year.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Last season was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
Exactly. All right, let me pause it. Let me end it here.